have already reached $128 billion. That's a 130% jump from last year. So joining me now, live from Los Angeles, is Milken Institute's Executive Director and Chief Economist, William Lee. William, thanks for joining me. That is a huge increase. Does this point to the success of President Trump's tariff regime?
Well, the revenues are certainly helpful because the big, beautiful bill that he was passed, everyone was complaining that the oncoming deficits are on the order of $2.5 trillion over the next 10 years. Well, at the pace that you just mentioned, that's more than enough to compensate for that deficit increase. So I think the Trump administration is looking at tariffs as one way to reduce the borrowing by the U.S. government in the credit markets and reduce the U.S. government as a source of crowding out of private investment.
Does that suggest then, given the idea that these tariffs are likely then being passed on to the US consumer, does that suggest that if that money is then going to funding this big, beautiful bill, which many have said has been quite beneficial for the wealthy consumer, that it's going to be quite redistributive when it comes to income?
Well, Katie, I think the jury is still out as to who is ultimately paying the bulk of these tariffs. Chair Powell himself has said that we still have to wait and see as to how much is being absorbed by the U.S. consumer and U.S. importers as opposed to the foreign exporters. And the U.S. is not a small country. It is a very large marketplace for most of these goods. And if the demand for these goods were to fall off, I think the prices will react in return. And some of that tariff payment will actually come through lower prices that will be charged by the foreign exporters. So that I think that premise is something that is still up in the air right now. But going forward, I think the whole issue of who's paying for the tax leveling, the lack of a tax increase, I think it's being paid for by a lot of the extra investment that'll be brought about because of the incentives in the tax bill, but also the incentives that President Trump has asked foreign countries to provide. The price of a low tariff rate for most countries is that they invest in the United States, they bring capital to the United States, create jobs here, and buy American products, and also open up their markets for U.S. companies. So the extra income that comes from those actions will also go to pay for a lot of that deficit.
William Lee, thank you so much for joining me on the program. Great to hear your thoughts. Now, with most leading economies